The UN estimates that up to 300,000 people could have been directly affected by the earthquake in Morocco. That as the death toll has risen now to over 2,000 as the race to find survivors continues amid an aftershock. We're going to be bringing you the very latest and talk to those directly affected by the quake. France's President Emmanuel Macron says France is willing to provide aid to Morocco the second it is requested. For now, Morocco accepting offers just from Britain, Spain, Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. We'll look at the needs and discuss the difficulties. And Moroccans across the country do their bit by queuing, often for long periods, to give blood to help the rescue effort. Good to have you with us. I'm Stuart Norval here on France 24 for this special programme dedicated for the next half hour to the situation in Morocco. So no food then, little or no water and desperate attempts to build shelter. It is life for the survivors of Morocco's deadliest earthquake in more than 6 decades. The death toll has risen now to over 2,000, a figure expected to rise further, with the UN estimating that up to 300,000 people could have been directly affected by the magnitude 6.8 quake. Many people have spent their third night in the open, with relief workers still facing huge challenges in reaching the worst affected villages in the rugged Atlas Mountains, where many homes have fallen into dust. Well, France 24 has been to the town of Moulay Brahim. It's 60 kilometres from Marrakesh, near to the epicentre. Jean-Marie Lemaire with Alison Sargent have this report.
It's still difficult to reach the small villages close to the earthquake's epicenter, though work has begun to clear the road. In Moulay Brahim, like many others, the toll was heavy. Dozens of people lost their lives here, and many are still missing. Even the homes that were left standing are no longer inhabitable.
We are living through a catastrophe. We sleep in the cold, we wake up and our blankets are wet. There are no tents or any other shelters. We're afraid of more aftershocks, like the one there was just 2 hours ago.
Right now the situation is very difficult and we don't have much. What we urgently need is medicine. There are people who are diabetic and others who have high blood pressure or heart disease.
A desperate community that's now living day to day, waiting for aid that's slow to arrive. Murad and his wife drove some 430 kilometers from Kenitra to bring supplies.
It's hard to supply these areas, you know, the entire road is just covered in rocks. So we really had a hard time getting here. But it's very important that we came.
Local groups and authorities are also distributing food. But the long-term survival of this small village is now uncertain. Its 17th century mausoleum can no longer welcome visitors.
All of
the residents of Moulay Ibrahim lived here thanks to this zawiya and this mausoleum. The hotels, the shops and the cafes. The only economic activity here came from the zawiya and the mausoleum. Now they've both collapsed. There's nothing left. All access is closed off. People won't be able to provide for themselves.
Today, the fate of Moulay Ibrahim depends entirely on national and international solidarity, including foreign emergency response teams that are beginning to arrive.
Well, let's talk now to Ikram Cole, who's a Moroccan journalist based in Agadir, west of the Atlas Mountains. Thanks very much for joining us on the programme. Where you are, Agadir, it was the city where up to 15,000 people died back in 1960, a third of the population in a huge earthquake. Once again, of course, the city feeling the earthquake of the last few days, relatively nearby still. I mean, what has that been like for people living there?
Well, honestly, it was a moment of shock and realizing the earthquake was happening again in Agadir because of its geological position in the whole Morocco. So the first idea that we had is that it was happening only in Agadir, not in the whole kingdom.
What are people doing now? I mean, are people just trying to carry on their daily lives, or has the city sort of come to a stop, worried about aftershocks, for example?
No, we are still having a moment of aftershock. I mean, we're having a bit of trouble sleeping, but as you know, Moroccans are tough. We have this sense of solidarity, this sense of love, of passion, of jealousy towards each other. So the next morning, literally, people started helping, donating blood, money, aids, buying anything that these people in these villages need, because we sort of have an idea and sort of a map to go to reach these villages throughout different roads. So if a road is closed, we know like a short map to still get there.
Do people feel confident about staying within their homes? I mean, presumably some buildings are maybe not as strong as others. If you happen to live in one which particularly perhaps isn't so solid, are people happy to stay inside?
No, I think that the problem is only like psychological. Like it happens. It's going on in our minds, not actually in our houses. The houses are fine, because it's not the center of where the earthquake happened. So the hit wasn't that strong to be able to actually make houses fall.
We're talking about an earthquake that happened 60 years ago, of course. There must be some people there, many people there, who still remember exactly what it was like. And presumably people such as yourselves are talking to them very much about what they remember from the time.
Yes, we used to always talk with my family members, my grandpa, my grandmother. We used to always ask them, like, how was the earthquake during the 60s? And there was some info about how the earthquake, like there was like a little shake, but the people ignored it. But the other shake came stronger, and that was the one that caused the 1960 earthquake. So we had these rumors going on in our heads when the earthquake happened 2 days ago. So we were pretty scared of like, what if a second wave happens? What if it's stronger than the other one? So the issue here, or the challenge, is to actually be careful and protect ourselves from fake news, especially based on what happened, because it's a different city, it's built on different standards, and that's what should make us sure about nothing bad is going to happen again.
Ikram Cole, thanks very much for joining us on the programme. Best of luck to you and those, of course, still trying to help the rescue effort there in Agadir, very near to the centre of that earthquake. Now, it's not, of course, just the professionals who are searching the rubble for survivors. Many ordinary people, often friends or relatives of people missing, also trying their best. Let's find out more in this report from Yinka Oyatade.
Among the ruins of their village, these residents are taking it upon themselves to look for their neighbours. With no professional rescue teams or military personnel, they are relying on their bare hands and this construction machine to remove the largest stones. They proceed cautiously. They know a family once lived here, their belongings buried in the rubble. After a few minutes of searching, they spot a body. It's a man. Like many, he didn't survive after being trapped under the wreckage, starved of oxygen. The town of Azmizmiz is just 20 kilometers from the epicenter of the quake. Many buildings and people living here didn't stand a chance. Soldiers and rescue workers are slowly reaching remote areas that have been the worst hit. In some families, it's hard to comprehend the number of victims.
This man has lost his wife and his 2-year-old son, his mother, father, and sister-in-law.
There are few examples of survivors making it out alive from under the rubble. Residents are digging graves for their loved ones, and then burials take place in an almost chain-like fashion. Desperation can be seen everywhere. Hospitals are overwhelmed by the number of those injured, while hungry residents scramble for food. Morocco now faces enormous challenges in the wake of this disaster.
Now, France's President Emmanuel Macron has said that France is willing to provide aid to Morocco the second it is requested. His comments adding to offers of help, of course, from many other countries. So far, though, Morocco is saying it's just accepting offers from 4 countries. That's Britain, Spain, Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. Let's hear then from Morocco, also from Joe Biden as well.
We have mobilized all the technical and security teams to be able to intervene when the Moroccan authorities deem it useful. And in any case, we are on hand. There have been discussions at ministerial level. And this morning, we have mobilized the World Bank, the IMF, the EU and the AU to, together with France, show strong support for Morocco, for the Moroccan people, for construction and financial aid in this context.
Before we begin, I want to express my sadness by the loss of life and devastation caused by the earthquake in Morocco. Our thoughts and prayers with the people of Morocco and my friend King Mohammed VI, I should say, and my administration, including Secretary of State Blinken, who's here with me today, is working with Moroccan officials on long distance here. We're working expeditiously to ensure American citizens in Morocco are safe, standing ready to provide any necessary assistance to the Moroccan people as well. We've made that offer.
Joe Biden and Emmanuel Macron there. Well, with me here on set now is Ketavan Gorgistani from our International Affairs Desk. Ketavan, we're already hearing up with international search and rescue teams beginning to trickle in to Morocco. What more can you tell us?
Well, there are four countries so far that have received that authorization from Morocco. That's Spain, the UK, Qatar, and the UAE. Spain, for example, has already sent 86 search and rescue officers, as well as 8 dogs. Dogs, of course, very important in searching for those survivors in the rubble. The UK also sending 60 specialists, as well as dogs, and more aid is going to be coming probably from these countries in the next hours, the next days. But otherwise, you haven't seen a sort of broad acceptance from Morocco, even though there have been dozens of countries that immediately offered their help, whether it's specialists or humanitarian aid, financial aid, whatever they need really is what they've been offered. But so far, they're sticking to those 4 countries. Some countries have decided to start trying to work around without the acceptance directly of the Moroccans. The Americans, for example, sending a very small team on the ground just to assess the situation, to see what exactly is needed, so that when Morocco actually accepts the help, they can send exactly what is needed the most, where it is needed the most. Algeria also, that has pretty tense relations with Morocco, they've decided to open their airspace so that humanitarian aid as well as medical flights can go back and forth. So that's how countries are trying to work around the position of the Moroccans right now.
Bearing in mind what you just said then, Ketavan, I mean, what could the reasons be that Rabat, at this stage anyway, is not accepting all the offers it can possibly get?
Well, it looks like there are 3 possible explanations. The first one is really the official position of the Moroccans, the Interior Ministry, saying that lack of coordination could be counterproductive in these moments. And there's partly some truth to it. You don't want all that aid from across the globe arriving at once at the very beginning of this disaster and not knowing exactly where to take it, how to best use it. And so there is some truth to really looking and assessing and seeing where the aid can go and be best used, if you will. Then you have a sort of position from the Moroccans that can be about showing that they are in control, that they have the strength, they have the sovereignty to take care of their own people, the capability and the resources to deal and organize their search and rescue operations the way they see fit, and that they will help their own people. And finally, there's also a sort of political aspect to it, not with all the countries, but there are some countries that have some tense political relationships. And of course, I'm thinking about the French in this case. And there are 2 aspects to the relation between France and Morocco. One is that there are very close ties between the 2 countries. You've had hundreds of thousands of people here who are of Moroccan descent, Moroccan citizens too, as well as French citizens who live in Morocco. So those ties are close. But politically, it's gotten very tense over the years with several different scandals. The Pegasus scandal, this was a sort of spyware that was on the phones, allegedly, possibly with also President Emmanuel Macron as a target. There was also a sort of tension last year amid the visa restriction from France to Moroccan citizens. And there's also the position of France when it comes to the Western Sahara and whether or not they recognize Morocco's sovereignty over it. So a lot of these things have made the situation between France and Morocco tense. President Macron, as we heard in that soundbite, immediately saying, we're standing by, we're ready to go whenever they will tell us that we can go.
Analysing the situation for us, Ketaban Gordestani from our International Affairs Desk. Thanks very much. Well, let's discuss some of those ideas and theories there from Ketaban now with Abu Bakr Jamai. He's professor of international relations at the American College of the Mediterranean in Aix-en-Provence. Thanks very much for joining us on the programme. I know you heard what Ketaban had to say there. I mean, what do you think about why the Moroccan government may, at this stage anyway, only be accepting help from 4 countries?
Well, among the reasons that have been put forward by your analysts, I'm not very convinced by the first one that is advanced by the Moroccan government, which says that it's a matter of coordination and actually of optimizing the whole rescue work. For many reasons, one of them is simply geographical. I don't see how Qatari aid and Emirati aid it can be more efficient than French aid, which is geographically closer than these 2 countries and even closer and also closer than the UK to Morocco. Secondly, in terms of expertise, the French have developed expertise in these fields. So I think, it's my view that in fact it's the third element that has been mentioned by your analysts, by your journalists, that to me is the best explanatory factor of the Moroccan regime's reaction, which is that there are some tense relations with France, and probably the Moroccan regime is not willing to allow France, in their mind to crow about the fact that they helped Morocco at some times, which I find pretty problematic and even unconscionable. And not to say that France is blameless in what happened between France and Morocco. I think France has a lot to account for some of its policies toward Morocco. I can mention the visa issue. I can mention also cases of, economic overbearing attitude toward Morocco. The Western Sahara issue also can be mentioned here. But under these circumstances, where no country on earth, whatever its development, the state of development, the U.S., European countries, whenever they are hit by an act of God of such magnitude, generally they are overwhelmed.
Yeah, surely. I mean, surely, though, bearing in mind what you're saying there, surely, with an event of this magnitude, all that should be put aside just to get the aid as quickly as possible to the people that really need it, whatever country it comes from.
Absolutely. And besides, there is another problem. There is a problem of consistency. I mean, if we are so antagonistic to France as to refuse to get their aid, then one has to ask himself, why is the king was in Paris actually when the earthquake happened? Because he has properties there. The other question that we might ask ourselves, we in Morocco are very proud of our automotive industry. There are 2 specific brands that are the torchbearer of this industry. They are Peugeot and Renault, which are France. The king himself is in business not with the private sector in France only, but with the French state, because he's a co-shareholder in an energy company based in Safi. So there is an issue of consistency too. I mean, if we are at that level of enmity with France, we should be more consistent in this enmity at least.
Looking at it from the outside, I mean, we report regularly here on France 24 with difficulties between the French government and notably Algeria and Tunisia, I'm thinking of. Relations with Morocco haven't been that bad, have they? I mean, do you think that this will be overturned? And actually, as this process goes on, inevitably it's not going to disappear within a couple of days. This is a weeks and months type situation that actually France will come more into this aid provision.
Well, I do hope that would be the case because, again, I think it's not a shame to get the help we can get to save, our co-citizens. And besides, in terms of relationship with France, I think the history, long dynamics are here to say that we are too intertwined and we need to, overcome the current situation. Now, in terms of help, with the aftermath of the earthquake, I do hope that Morocco will use this opportunity to be more open to other countries with which it had tense relations and to try to solve the problems that we have with these countries.
Great to talk to you on the programme. Thanks very much for joining us. Abu Bakr Jamai is Professor of International Relations at the American College of the Mediterranean in Aix-en-Provence in the south of France. Thanks. Now, people across Morocco have been doing their bit by giving blood in the hope of helping their fellow citizens, that not least in Marrakesh itself as well. Oliver Farry has this report.
In Marrakesh, residents line up to offer help. There were long queues outside blood transfusion centres to give blood, badly needed by victims of Friday's earthquake. For those who came along, there was no hesitation.
My father suggested I come and donate blood, as there is a big need of it in the centres. As you can see, there is a massive display of solidarity by Moroccans, with many people queuing outside in the sun. It is heartwarming to see the commitment of our citizens, and even foreigners who have no direct connection to the disaster have joined us. It is a beautiful thing.
Among the foreigners were 2 visiting Scottish tourists who felt they had to help.
My daughter and I are here for a few days holiday. We love Marrakesh, and we saw there was an appeal for blood. We both give blood in our home places, and so we are here to give blood.
Moroccan police also joined in, forming long lines in the country's biggest city, Casablanca, and the stars of the national football team, who reached the semi-final of last year's World Cup, also gave blood. The response allayed the initial fears of doctors in the hours following the quake.
Today we are facing a terrible tragedy. There are victims who need blood. We have called on people to donate, and the number of people who came has really taken us aback.
The World Health Organization estimates that about 300,000 people in the Marrakesh region have been affected by the earthquake, Morocco's deadliest in 6 decades.
Well, meanwhile, NGOs and volunteer groups here in France are already springing into action to try to help in Morocco. Camille Knight has this report.
Faced with the disaster that hit Morocco, towns across France have been quick to react. In this flea market near Besançon, the blue and yellow colours of Ukraine have been swiftly replaced by red and green.
We're not tied to one country, we're united to help countries, and today Morocco is in need, so we're focusing on that.
A number of small volunteer groups have sprung into action across France, like here in this town in Brittany, where medical equipment is being collected. Who gave you all that?
Hospitals gave us this stuff, hospitals near us, and 2 local care homes.
In Rouen, a halal supermarket is collecting donations. In Strasbourg, the Muslim Cultural Institute has been gathering clothes and basic necessities from donors.
This morning I quickly collected what I had at home, so blankets, sheets. You don't know what to do with them, but you keep them in case they can be useful. And well, today they can be useful.
Celebrities have also rushed to pledge their support, like comedian Gad Elmaleh, born in Morocco, or Franco-Moroccan comedian Jamel Debbouze.
Let's all do our bit to help Morocco and pray that lives will be saved in the hours and days ahead.
From celebrities to anonymous donors, the scale of the unfolding tragedy has shaken people across France.
Camille Knight there with that report. Now, meanwhile, France's foreign ministry has advised French citizens visiting Morocco to return home if possible. Many tourists have already taken early flights back to their home countries, but it's very worrying for business owners in Morocco who say foreign visitors are highly important customers. Siobhan Silk has more.
The work is well underway to repair the damage in Marrakesh's Medina. This historic district is one of the main tourist draws in the city. From some angles, it seems to look the same as always. There are still some visitors milling about, but many have ended their holidays early, and the businesses that rely on tourist spending say they're facing losses.
Usually, tourists stop by our store when they visit the city. Yesterday, because of what happened, there weren't many people, no visitors, no customers.
This phenomenon reminded us a bit of the COVID pandemic, the rush to the airports and all that. But I know a lot of people understand it was a natural event that happened, so we shouldn't panic.
This B&B is close to the epicenter. It survived the earthquake relatively unscathed, but its owner is concerned about the knock-on effect.
60% of my bookings have been cancelled. It's a pity because it's adding an economic catastrophe on top of the human catastrophe.
Tourism is hugely important to Morocco's economy. It accounts for around 8% of GDP. Some industry experts believe the downturn will be short-lived.
I'm concerned about new bookings. That'll be a problem for the next few weeks. After that, it'll bounce back, I'm sure.
For the moment, though, flights out of Morocco are filling up. Most airlines are allowing passengers to change their flights to earlier dates without penalty.
Siobhan Silk there, bringing an end to this special half-hour edition dedicated to the events in Morocco. In the next half hour of the programme, of course, we'll bring you up to date with Morocco, plus a little look at the rest of the news and lightening things as well with our perspective guests. That's all coming up for you in just a few moments here on France 24, so stay with us.